was the son of a preacher man. The only boy who could ever teach me was the son of a preacher man. Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Alright, Preacher is AMC's new show based off of the Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon comics, or graphic novels, depending on how you want to put that. It's created by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who are the ones who write pretty much most of Seth Rogen's movies, Superbad, This Is the End, all that kind of stuff. So kind of a crazy thing to come out of their wheelhouse. But it's 4 episodes in, and I've read the first 2 books in the Preacher line. So I think there's 6 books total, and you're coming into this not reading any of it. So I'm curious how we're going to look at this differently. So what do you think of Preacher so far?
So far, I like it. Not quite sure how to analyze the characters for the most part. Like you said, you've read, so you know the characters, you know pretty much who they are, their backgrounds, and I'm in here. It's like, okay, who the heck is this guy? And so this girl obviously knows him.
For those that don't know the story pretty much, Preacher it's focused on a guy, Jesse Custer. So he's a preacher in a small Texas town. I'm pretty sure it's a fictional town. And in the comics, his backstory is told in a flashback very quickly. He's a preacher in a small town. Nobody really takes church seriously. He gets tired of hearing everybody's confessions, and nobody really repents, and nobody really does anything to honor God. So then he gets pissed off and drunk and goes and pretty much airs out everybody's dirty laundry in front of everybody at this bar, and gets in a fight, gets beat up, comes to church the following Sunday, and the entire town is there for the first time. And out of nowhere, this apparition, if you'll say, flies into the church, goes inside Jesse, and then causes everybody in the town to explode. And then the rest of the story pretty much is Jesse's on this road trip trying to find God to figure out what is going on, why God's doing the things that he's doing.
All right, question. So is Tulip with him in these comics?
Yes, Tulip and Cassidy is the other 2 main characters. So Cassidy's an Irish vampire. He's Custer's best friend. And Tulip is kind of his ex-flame, ex-criminal partner who comes back into his life. Now, the show so far is very different than the comics. The show starts off, and Jesse Custer is just a man of God he's struggling with his faith, trying to be a good preacher. Yeah,
it's like some rinky-dink ran downtown. Mm-hmm. Everybody's like odd characters. You don't even get to... I feel like within the first episodes, I still don't know who the people are. I get a little side story as to Cassidy, knowing he's a vampire. Mm-hmm. A little side story with Jesse, knowing like, okay, we're starting to see him with his dad now, and so like... why he is the way he is type of stuff. But still, I don't have any idea what's going on with Tulip. I don't know how her and Jesse know each other, really. It's kind of getting into it, but I feel like...
The strange thing about the way that they're pacing this show is it seems like they're trying to establish small little specks of the spirit of the comic, and everything else is just kind of foreshadowing things that happens later on in the books. And I know you don't pick up on it when you see certain characters, or like you see a guy in a white suit, and I know who that's going to end up being. You're just, okay, it's a guy in a white suit.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit, I guess the word I can use to describe this show is confused at what exactly they're trying to do. And I'm assuming with the way that they're doing the story so far is that they're kind of setting up this first season to be kind of a prequel to the beginning of the comics, and then from then on, season 2 onward, assuming that they get renewed, which they probably will, they'll start going through stories of the comics.
Well, you say there's like a character in the show that's also in the books, the Arseface.
Well, whoever. Jesse Custer, Cassidy, Tulip, Arseface, Sheriff Root, those are all in the comics.
So we see them.
And the two, I'll call them strangers because they just revealed that they're angels, but they haven't really got into what they're doing quite yet. But the 2 people who are hunting down Jesse, or what is inside of Jesse, are in the comics as well. But everything so far that's taken place, like the small Texas town is only like 20 pages in the comics, so they're really dwelling on this beginning of the story a lot. So
I think it's where they got to get people's attention. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I still don't know who the characters are or what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's opening up to them little by little.
Well, I feel like they're holding Jesse in the town so that you can kind of get to know everybody else. I'm assuming it's because they're going to build up to what happens in the beginning of the comics, and that way it's not just a bunch of random people. It's people you got to know, and you're like, whoa, what the fuck? What's going to happen next season then? So this is going to be one of those shows where you kind of have to stick around for their long game, and people who have read the comics kind of have to pump the brakes and just sit it out, because everybody who's read the comics, I guarantee, is sitting around like, dude, what the fuck are they doing? They're changing this. They're not doing this. This person's not here yet. So kind of for the first time, I get to experience that, because usually I read comics or I'll read a book after I've seen the show, so I don't really get to bitch along with everybody else. But they're establishing Jesse. Cassidy comes in, starts kind of being like a guardian for the church and doing odd things around the church.
All at night, because he can't go out during the day. Exactly. So
far, he's probably my favorite character. Which he has a lot of great moments so far in the comics. But the other main character who's a lot different in the show is Tulip. And Tulip was always kind of you always knew she was strong in the comics, but they kind of establishing her as like this badass, almost like she's cooler than Jesse in the show.
I know the show's really about Jesse, but you see just as much about Tulip as you do about him, and she's kind of the boss. What she says pretty much
she keeps trying to lure him back to their old life, which they've only showed little snippets so far, but you pretty much gather they used to do crime together. They used to either rob banks or rob cars or do things of that nature. So she's trying to draw him back in. He's trying to resist and stay a good man.
She's kind of the bad girl character. Like when I see her in the show, she's always at a brothel or something like that, and she's always like fucking somebody up. So you're like, hey, I don't know who this chick is, but I want to know more about her.
Mm-hmm. So I like what they've done with her a lot, because she's obviously I haven't gotten through everything, but she's a lot more of a personality in the show so far. When I was talking about foreshadowing, we really don't have any kind of a villain set up so far, but they're just kind of teasing villains that come into play later on. Like I think it was episode 2, or it might have even been episode 3. At the very beginning, they had a little short scene with an old man kind of riding a horse through the Old West, and he stops at a campfire and then rides away. And anybody who hasn't read the comics was like, what the fuck is that about? Anybody who has read the comics knows that that's basically just kind of foreshadowing the saint of all killers. And he ends up being like this bounty hunter who's coming after Jesse. And then you got Jackie Earle Haley playing Odin Quincannon, who ends up being a big character later on in the books as well, which they're focusing a lot on him so far.
So which one is
he's the one with the glasses who he just got. In episode 4, he's the one that owns the meatpacking plant.
Okay, yeah.
He doesn't talk a whole lot, but they're setting him up already, and they're just now starting to get in with John Custer, Jesse's father. And Jesse's father has a really big section of story showing kind of how Jesse came to be into the clergy. And so far, it looks like they're going a lot different than they did in the comics. In the comic, there was a lot of story with his mom and his grandma and things of that nature. That they haven't mentioned anything about his mom yet. They're showing that he's got a relationship with Odin Quincannon, which I don't think ever was established in the books. Even Jesse's kind of got like a friendship with him.
Yeah, I feel like also with the whole bad guys, you know who they are from the comics, but when I'm watching the shows, the people I see, there's like a little boy who comes up in one of the very first episodes, and he's like, my daddy's a bad guy, and he hurts me and my mom, and so Jesse kind of like takes his own revenge and breaks his arm or whatever. So he keeps coming back and forth. You're not quite sure
Mm-hmm.
You know he's bad, but you're not quite sure to what extent. And also, there's like a guy who's a pedophile. He likes little girls. So you kind of see Jesse take his revenge out on him as well. But we're not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. You are. If they're villains or if they're just like.
Well, those are all characters who aren't in the comics.
Okay.
These are all people. They're fleshing out this town. And you didn't get to know anybody in the town aside from the sheriff and Arseface, which is later on.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't really get to know anybody in the town before this, the event happened in the comic. So both those characters that you were talking about are created for the show.
Yeah.
I think they're more avenues to show Jesse kind of getting a hold of his powers. So like whenever he gets hit with this, they haven't given it a name yet, but it's called Genesis, the being that kind of shoots into him and starts giving him the word of God, where he can speak to anybody and they'll have to do whatever he says. With the pedophile, that's where he first kind of started trying to use it, telling him, forget about the girl.
Yeah, he also tries to drown him too, so it's more so of a brute strength.
It's kind of like a forced baptism.
Yeah. In his own tub, no holy water.
Exactly.
Scalding hot water.
Mm-hmm. So they did that, and then they're showing little snippets of Jesse being the Jesse he is in the comics. Because in the comics, he's not who he is in the show at all. Like in the show, he's like just trying to be a good guy and trying to help everybody. And if that's what they're going to go with for the entirety of the show, then they did not get the point.
I feel like it'll be boring if that's how they go. Because right now I'm just kind of looking at him as a nonchalant guy. He just kind of walks around. He just wants people to come to church, trying to do whatever he can to get them there. And you see him do bad things to bad people. Mm-hmm. But as far as him being a strong character right now, I don't see it.
Well, that's what I'm hoping I'm hoping I'm right that they're just kind of setting this all up as like a prequel to what happens in the comics, and then from then on he kind of becomes the Jesse that we all know in the comics. Because in the comics he is a preacher, he does believe in God and everything, but he also kind of just wants to punch God in the fucking face. So that's kind of who he is as a character.
I'm seeing that.
So they've nailed Cassidy, they've nailed Tulip. I'm just very curious what they're doing with Jesse.
Now you say the lady that plays the organ, is she in the comics as well?
She's not. Everybody in this town, like I said, except for the sheriff and Arseface, has not been in the comic at all. These are all characters that they're created for the show.
Okay.
So she, I'm not quite sure. They've kind of teased her, like maybe her and Jesse kind of had a thing going on.
Like a love interest, maybe, that it's coming to that.
Yeah, like I didn't sure maybe he was involved with her, and that's why he's been kind of brushing Tulip off. But then it showed her with the mayor kind of having her own thing. So I really don't know.
Yeah, stays the night or something.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they are going to do anything with her and Jesse. They're kind of starting to tease a little bit, like maybe Cassidy's got a crush on Tulip, because like she accidentally stabs him thinking he's somebody else, and or she hits him and then he gets stabbed with that glass.
Yeah. So in the show, that's the first we see them really interact together. Mm-hmm. We see them in the same episode before, but they're not really talking. We don't know they never see each other really. So, so in the fourth episode, she stabs him, or you're right, does something crazy. It's when he gets
knocked into the window and then the glass goes into his neck or something like that. So then she's trying to save him, and then he sucks out all the blood out of the blood bags in the hospital, and he says something to her. What's funny is they've got subtitles for Arseface, which is something that they took from the comic, because in the comic he everything he tried to say was muffled, and they had subtitles showing what he actually said, which they kept in the show. But I almost need subtitles for Cassidy, because he's got such a strong Irish accent that sometimes I'm like, what the fuck did he say?
Yeah, I think you see them. They kiss or something in the fourth episode, so you're not quite sure if there's a romantic thing going on with them. Then again, they just met, so you don't know if she feels bad probably for almost killing him. So it's kind of a pity kiss for her. We're not quite sure what it is for him right now.
Well, in the comic, whenever after the church explodes at the very beginning, Tulip and Cassidy have already kind of been partners and been hanging out with each other for a while, and they just kind of come across Jesse. So they're kind of a tight-knit group before Jesse and Tulip are. So they might be going that route where she's going to try to probably get Cassidy to finally try to try to get Jesse to take whatever this job is that she keeps pestering him about, which we really still don't have any idea what it is. She gets some kind of a map.
Apparently it's for some revenge, it looks like.
Well, yeah, she gets some kind of a map, and then it shows little snippets of, like, a job that went wrong or somebody that betrayed them, and she's trying to lure him in with, after he won't take the job, just out of greed or coming back to the life, she tries to lure him in with, well, we got to go get revenge on that guy. So it seems like whatever they're trying to go to is going to end up being kind of the climax of the story of the season, probably, whenever we start figuring out what the hell they're going to be doing. But there's a lot of things, there's a lot of setup, there's a lot of different directions things are going, and I'm curious to see what direction the show takes us.
Yeah, so, I'm equally as curious to see how it goes. Like I said, I don't know.
I'm just curious. Like, it's funny to me because, like, I see things like we've already discussed. Like, I could see foreshadowing and little images that I recognize from the comics, and I'm curious. Everybody that's watching this show that doesn't know the comics, what the hell they even think? Like, they don't have, where is this going? What's going on? This is insane. You got a preacher, you got a fucking vampire, and you got
it kind of goes in all sorts of directions. I'm not quite sure. Okay, is it going to be the vampire and Tulip helping him?
It's almost like one of those stories that people follow. Like, I have no fucking idea what's going on, but I can't stop
curious.
Watching.
Yeah, it's like a train wreck.
Yeah.
You can't look away.
So for the first 4 episodes, Lee, what's the main thing that you like and the main thing that you don't like?
I don't know. I feel like it's not far enough along for me to really. I don't care about any of the characters that much. They haven't grabbed me, so I'm kind of right now just in a way being strung along with you. You kind of saying, "Hey, I like the show. Let's watch it. Let's watch it." So yeah, I'm kind of I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt that I'm gonna start finding something I like in it. I like kind of how they kind of I don't know, get revenge on people type of stuff. How it's got that. It's not so much of a sit and wait kind of show, but it's not like super actiony. Like what? Like
The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, I like Cassidy a lot. I like a lot of the humor scenes that they give him. Like, I think him over and over just mutilating those angels and them just coming back, and he's like, "What the hell?" Like, that was cracking me up. I like Tulip a lot, and I like the moments of Jesse where he is the Jesse from the comics. Like, whenever he's becomes a badass, I like that. I'm not quite sold on the good guy Jesse so far.
Yeah, I don't have anyone to compare him to, so right now he's just kind of like a stick in the mud for me, kind of like, okay, well, we want you to come to this church, but shit, if it was me, I wouldn't go to his church neither. He seems like a weirdo.
Yeah. Well, my main negative really is just the pacing of the show. Like, the first episode, I thought it was strange how it was very kind of slow and just kind of dragging you along and just showing little snippets here and there, but I haven't really seen the pacing change in 4 episodes.
It is very slow.
So yeah, it's kind of, reading a comic is different than watching a show. A comic's going to move a lot faster anyway, but the comic moves a lot faster as far as, like, more action, getting from point A to point B to point C, where this seems like establishing the characters and just kind of giving little teases of what's to come, and teases and teases and teases, and I'm hoping here, it's a 10-episode season, and they're getting ready to be at the halfway point here this Sunday, so I'm hoping it's going to start ramping up, or their long game might be in some trouble, because if they're just stringing everybody along with hopes that season 2 and on are going to be badass and on the road and following all the stories that people love, then they're going to be playing with fire with their ratings for this season. I haven't looked at the ratings to see how many people are watching it, but they're going to be in trouble if they lose everybody's interest with the pace and they lose all the hardcore comic fans because they're not seeing the characters of the story that they know, just holding out to see what's going to happen possibly next season. So hopefully it ramps up. That's my main thing that I'm a little bit worried about. But other than that, I'm just like you. I'm still watching. Just curious where things are going to go.